Hi, this is Becky Nunn of Nunn Design, and I'm in the studio here with Julie and Chris, and we're shooting this video with Beadaholique. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to rubber stamp on epoxy clay and put a colorized resin over the top of it to create porcelain-like pieces like these. What you'll need for this video are some casting craft color pigments. I have a yellow and a blue, and that's what I'm going to be needing to make this teal color. I've already pre-mixed some clear resin. I have a rubber stamp, some stir sticks and toothpicks, a little bit of crystal clay that I've already pre-mixed, some StazOn jet black ink, and a couple bezels and a business card. So our first part of this is we're going to select a bezel to work with, and we're going to go ahead and our two-part epoxy that we've already mixed together, I just pinched off a little bit, then I'm rolling it into a nice smooth ball, and then I'm going to see how much do I have here. Do I have too much or do I have too little? And too much is going to be, I'll show you, if you have a domed surface, it's going to be a lot more tricky to stamp on that. So you're going to want to have it just so it's enough so it is kind of flat in there. Not underneath that rim, because then it'll be harder for that stamp to hit it, but just kind of flush with that rim. So I just had a slight bit too much, so I pulled off a tiny bit, just that much, and we'll see if that makes a difference. So you have 90 to 120 minutes to work with this clay before it starts to get hard. So take your time and just make sure that you have the right amount of clay in there, because it'll really make a difference on how your impression is received from that rubber stamp. And that is a much better fit. I just want to have it nice and flat. Just using this part of my thumb to kind of press down on that clay and make it nice and flat and smooth. All right, now that once I have all of that clay in there, I'm going to want to go around those side edges and clean up. Next, we're going to use our StazOn jet black ink. So go ahead and open up your pad and go ahead and stamp your rubber stamp on there, and then test it to make sure that you have a nice even coverage. This will also tell me if my pad is drying out and if I need to re-ink, or if I'm just doing just fine, and that looks great. So once you have your image all inked up onto your surface, you're going to want to place it over, and you're going to very lightly touch down, giving a nice imprint. Right here, my imprint didn't touch all that well, so I can very lightly retouch it up with another hit. So it's really important that you're doing this process when the clay is wet, because that'll allow the ink to absorb into the clay and be permanent. So the next step for adding the colorant onto our epoxy clay stamped piece is to add a little bit of the casting craft yellow and blue to a pre-mixed two-part resin. One of the questions that Julie at Beadaholique here gets asked quite frequently, and so do I, is how long do I have to work with this resin before it hardens? And the answer is, it depends on where you are and the heat. For example, we're in the studio here in Southern California, and it is hot in here. And so Julie mixed up a batch, and 20 minutes later, it was rock hard. So we had to stop the video and mix up another batch. So the answer is, it depends on where you are, and it depends how hot it is. But in this case, it was a very small lifespan before it hardened. So for mixing, yikes, you're going to go ahead and take off the lid and add just a small little head amount on that toothpick of the yellow to the clear. We're just going to add a little teeny bit, because it's easier to continue to add than it is to have to add more and more resin. maybe a tiny bit more. I'm just squeezing that up, getting that extra little pigment off of that top and stirring it in. And then do so also with the blue. And squeezing it up, tiny, teeny bit. So this colorant's going to last you for a good amount of time. So I already know that that was probably plenty of blue just in itself. So I'll just continue to use another toothpick to blend that in. And you can see how potent that is. That blue really influenced that whole batch really fast. So if you wanted it to be a little bit more of a green, I would add a little bit more of that yellow color. But that looks kind of interesting just like that. So once that's all mixed up, and you're done with your toothpicks, you can go ahead and drizzle it right onto your stamped piece. See how lovely that is? I love that little teal color. It's just so nice. And I'm just putting a slight amount and just slightly moving it with my stir stick. Or what you could do is just place it on there with your stir stick like this, and then go back in with your toothpick and move it around. See, I'm gently bringing it to those side edges. If you haven't worked with two-part resin, it is self-doming. So it just wants to know where that side area is, and then it'll stop. That's one of the questions people often ask is, how does it not go over the edge? And this product is designed to be doming. So it just wants to know where that edge is, and then it stops. And there we have a lovely little piece that we can put on a chain, or if you did multiple pieces, which I highly recommend that you do at a time, because look how much resin we still have. And then you can string them all together and make a charm bracelet or multiple pieces. Pretty darn fun. Here is an example of something like that put together in a charm bracelet. This is Becky Nunn with Nunn Design here at Beadaholique, and it's hot in here. We hope you enjoyed learning how to make this. This is probably one of my favorite projects. I hope it is one of yours too.